Okay, so the final assignment for A413 is to apply all of our simulation workflows to your studio project. Now, the idea was supposed to be that you would do this throughout the semester and in your studio project, and then right now you just would be sort of pulling all this together. I can see that not everybody did that, and not all studios did it the same. So I want to just show you how we can do this quickly. Um, and so I'm going to run through a series of videos where I go through all of our workflows on a single simple project that I've made up. Let's start with the site. Well, actually, let's start with how I would set it up if I was just starting from scratch, going, okay, I'm gonna bring everything together into a single series of simulations and maybe do some iteration based on what I'm learning. The first thing I would do is set up a series of layers so that you can organize this. And you'll see as we go through this that I am repeating some of the geometry in different simulation folders. But this allows me to keep it organized. If I have to change something in daylighting that I don't want to change in thermal, I can do that and not have have the original geometry still intact. Um, the next thing I want to mess with is the site. You guys typically have a pretty big site for your studio projects, which is good. Um, because you need it for context and thinking about, demographics, etc. But for simulations, we don't need that. All we need is the portion of the site that is affected by the sun, essentially. So if this orange area is my potential building site, then all I need to do is think about when, what portions of the site affect the sun. And so I can already see that, this is winter. I might want to think about, do I want my building here or here? Um, but what I'm talking about now is how much of the site do I actually need to do simulations? So if I go through, the winter solstice is where you're going to have um, probably the most sun. Well, in this case, because I have buildings to the south. Um, but if I go to the summer solstice, see that there's, very that building on the east is going to shade somewhat, and then the equinox is going to be somewhere in between, right? Um, and so I can determine from that I really don't need, I want to keep this building, these four buildings, probably maybe this one. I don't need these to the north. I don't need any of this down here. I don't, this is just for, again, some kind of demographic study or to give me context. I don't need that for my simulation. So for my performance simulation. So what I've done, you don't need to do this specifically. I'm just making a point that that you want to make it smaller. So I trimmed my site to this size, and I created a solid. But you don't need to do that. Like if I think you guys, most of your sites are pretty flat. You could just make a flat surface. One point I will make is that so I'm going to select this surface. If I go into properties, I can either cast shadows or not with an object. So I want this to receive shadows because I want the shadows to be on that surface, but I don't want it to cast shadows. And similarly, if I come to the box I made, or I could make this larger, and then but I am saying that this box, if I go, I don't want it casting shadows. I just want it receiving shadows. All right, anyway, so I have now limited my site to this size, and this is what I'm going to use in all my simulations. And why do I do this? Well, when I'm doing, for example, a daylight analysis, I need these buildings, right? Because they will cast shadows on the building, and that will therefore adjust the daylighting. It will also adjust the thermal performance of the building because the sun is part of that, right? And so what we did in the workflows for this semester at this point was do a radiation map, and I did not require this for the final assignment, but just reminding you, if we, again, look at the footprint and, um, for example, create a box and decide, so I could say at this point, well, I know that my building is going to be a certain height because of my program and a certain square footage. I can just make a box and then consider where it might be, I might want to be thinking about placing it by doing a radiation study. So here's my box in one place. Um, let me switch to remind me that you can always, I want to be in IP units for this. Um, so I can see here that let's say, okay, I'm at 406 here for the roof. This is the amount of sun hitting the roof. This is kilobtUs per square foot per year, but you don't need to know that. That's just, we can look at relative numbers. And I see that I'm getting a fair amount more here, like a 406 to 447. So if I were to, um, that's like a 10% more sun on the roof between these two locations. I can also see that, here um, and here, a drastic difference because of this is the annual average between these two sightings because of this building here. Right, so that's what we were doing in, I guess, week 4 to get a rough idea of where we might want to put the building. That's something you'd be doing at this stage. But in this assignment, we're not worrying about that. You've already got your studio project. You're just trying to apply simulations that you either have already done and you're just pulling that information and improving it, or you're just doing it from scratch. So we have our site. Let's move on to actual simulations.